This is how to replace a P3 Volvo 3-liter and 3.2-liter inline-6 engine/transmission mount located on the driver's side of the engine. I have the 3-liter T6 engine, so it might be a little different on the 3.2-liter engine, but it'll generally be the same. My symptoms were a grinding noise at various accelerations, a lot of vibrations in the gas pedal and interior. Also, when the AC was running, you could feel vibrations in the pedal. I bought a Pro Parts Sweden replacement, and after a couple days it worked great, and I would recommend for you to get the same brand. First, remove your airbox by loosening the hose clamp with a flathead screwdriver. I have a custom intake, but the process is generally the same. Disconnect the mass airflow sensor by pressing the tab and pulling the sensor down. Then the air intake should just come right out. Remove the top of the battery covers and disconnect the battery. Remember, negative cable first, then positive cable. Remove the battery brace and pull out the battery. Remove the rest of the battery covers gently, as it's really easy to break the plastic clips. Loosen the three 8mm bolts on the bottom battery tray and wiggle it out to remove it. Now you can visibly see the engine mount. This next step is very important, so pay attention. Get a floor jack and locate the transmission. Place your jack roughly on the area on the screen. Lift the jack up slightly so the weight of the transmission and engine is sitting on the jack, but don't lift it up too high. If you do not do this, this will basically make the engine fall on the ground. Spray some penetrating fluid on these 4 bolts if you have it, just to be safe, and remove them with an 18mm socket. Next, remove the cover on the fuse box and remove the 8mm bolt. Grab a flathead screwdriver and push the tab on the bottom of the fuse box like I do here. Then pry the fuse box to the left gently, and it should unclip and give you some room to reach the bolts underneath. Remove the two 10mm bolts with a wrench while holding the fuse box up with your other hand. After you remove the bolt, you should have some room to remove the bracket. Locate the two 18mm bolts connecting the mount to the transmission. Spray some penetrating fluid and remove them with an extension and a breaker bar. Remove these 2 bolts holding down the hard lines to give you some extra wiggle room. Lift out the mount and give it a visual inspection. Make sure the new part is the same as the old part. The old mount definitely has a lot more play than the new part, so it's definitely pretty worn. I have around 134,000 miles on my car, and the part looks to be original. Insert the new mount the same way the old one was. Now pay attention to this step, as if you don't take your time, you can cause some serious issues like cross-threading the bolt. Play around with the mount to align to the transmission holes. Lower or raise the jack accordingly, but make sure that the 2 bolts hand thread on nicely and don't have a ton of resistance. I jacked up my engine higher so that the mount sat flush on top of the transmission, but just play around with it might be different for you. This step was hard to record, but after I was able to hand thread those bolts in, I tightened them with a ratchet. Since the new mount is pretty stiff and it's able to shift back and forth, I used a long flathead screwdriver to pry the mount a little bit so that the holes lined up correctly. But again, take your time and hand thread those bolts in. Next, this is also important for your safety, grab a 1/2-inch torque wrench, and I'll put the torque specs from Vita on the screen. These 2 bolts that connect to the transmission require 175 Newton meters or 129 foot-pounds of torque, which is pretty strong, so I'd recommend using a 1/2-inch 18mm socket, which I didn't have. Then put those 2 hardline bracket bolts back in place how they were and just put them in snug. Place the engine mount bracket back on top of the new mount, then hand thread the back 10mm bolt that holds it in place under the fuse box. Make sure to put this one in first or you won't be able to reach the other one. Tighten it down pretty snug with a wrench and then do the same for the other bracket bolt. Hand thread the 4 nuts on top of the bracket and tighten them down to 80 Nm or 59 foot-pounds. Now you can gently drop the jack to make sure the engine mount is working correctly. Push back the fuse box back into place, give it a little tug to make sure you put it in the clips right, then put back and tighten the 8mm bolt that holds it in place. Put the fuse box cover back on, then put the battery tray back on and line it up with the bolt holes. Hand thread and tighten the 3 8mm bolts, grab your battery and place it back in how it was. Then secure it with the bracket so it doesn't slide around. Make sure your hood latch cable is not pressed against the battery. Connect the battery cables to the battery, positive cable first, then negative cable. Pop the battery covers back on and then put back the airbox / intake, making sure that the hose clamp is tightened and the mass airflow sensor is plugged back in. And that's how to replace a P3 Volvo 3-liter and 3.2-liter inline-6 engine/transmission mount located on the driver's side of the engine. Thanks for watching and consider leaving a like on the video.